Ooh, check your girl out. Yes, this hair is laid and it does look cute. I am doing a full sew-in today with closure because I was headed to Miami and I wanted to try something different. So yes, check your girl out. We making another video. And let's go. Alright, so as y'all can see here, I am getting ready to start my braid pattern. So what I just did with the comb was just get the baby hairs that I want to save out of the way before I started braiding. So as you can see, I'm braiding down into this pattern with the middle part. That's key. You're going to put the middle part right exactly where you want your closure part to go. So you want your part as straight as possible during this process. So with that, I am braiding very close to the perimeter of my forehead. As you can see, the braids are sitting right at the top, and that's important because you want your sew-in to look natural. If you wait to push that thing farther back, you're going to be all forehead and it's not going to look real. So make sure you start your first braid right at the perimeter of your head. And then I make my braids, they're not extremely small, but they're small enough so that my rows, when I sew in, they'll be really close together. So my braids are, I would call them medium. They're small, medium, so it won't take me all day to braid, but they're still small enough for this. So I am simply going through and braiding the hair down so that it's neat and it's sectioned off so that it'll be appropriate for my sew-in. So that is what I am doing here. So I am finishing up my braid pattern. And as you can see, I have a consistent rows all the way across where I have the braids connected at the ends so that I'm left with only one end piece. And this is important because you don't want your sew-ins to be bulky. Okay, so now I'm done braiding my hair. You can see my braiding pattern here. I have the hair that I'll be using for today. It comes from Organique. And as you can see here, it's a synthetic mix brand here. And it comes with a lace closure here, a middle part. So today I'll be showing you how I put this together. And I sew it on and get to it. So there's really a lot of things to consider when you're doing the middle part. You want to make sure whatever braided pattern you choose to do, there is a middle part that matches and it lines up with where the lace front will sit. I haven't plucked it or anything like that yet. I'm just going to sew it on first, and then I'll work with plucking and all that in a second, but I just want to get it all on there first, and then I'll pluck it at the end. So let's get started. So what you're seeing me do here is align the closure with my part, and now I'm stabilizing the closure to my braids. So I'm using two separate needles. The first needle I did, as you can see there, on my right side, and the second needle I'm using on my left side, and I'm securing the lace front so that I'm able to sew seamlessly without holding it with one hand. So that's an important piece, especially if you're doing this on yourself like I'm doing right now. So as you can see, I'm moving down each row and I am sewing the lace, specifically on the lace, to my braid. So I'm going in under each braid and sewing onto the lace and repeating it as I go along and down the braid. So I'm doing that on one side first, and then I do it along the other side prior to moving into the back. And that's a critical point. You want to do your back last, that I'm about to do right now, because when you do the back, it creates some sort of resistance to your front, so it pulls it back more. So you want to make sure you have it aligned when you sew in the back, so that you're not kind of lopsided when you do your closure. And that's important because you will look crazy at the end if you don't make sure that it's aligned on both sides before you sew in the back piece. So make sure on the closure you sew in at the back last. And as you can see, I'm doing the same method that I did before and making sure that I go around and make sure that it's secure. Okay, so now that the closure is secure around the perimeter, you want to go in and make sure that it's secure in the front. And that's important so that it doesn't kind of, open up at the front and show everybody that, you're wearing a lace front. So what I'm doing here is creating some space for me to sew under. So I'm just making a little part along the front of the lace front. So I just pulled out those pieces right in the front, as you can see there. And I'm taking the rest of the hair and just pulling it back so that it won't be in my face as I'm sewing in at the front. So I'm pulling all of the excess hair to the back, just putting a little clip on it so that it's out of the way. Once I have my two pieces in the front, I grab my needle and I'm going to do the same thing that I did around the perimeter, except for now it's in the front of your head. So I'm simply taking the needle and sewing under that. Remember that braid I told y'all to put right at the perimeter? You're going to sew under that braid so that you secure your hair, that lace front, to that braid. And I'm going to do that all the way across the front of the perimeter of this sew in. So that's what I'm doing here, and this will be the final phase of me securing this closure down so that it doesn't move around when I'm done. Okay, so I did the first half of that front piece, and now I'm finalizing the second half of that perimeter. As you can see here, I am just making sure that it is done. I'm making sure that it's secure and tight. I'm just checking and moving it around. Whatever I see I missed a spot, I had to go back and just make sure that that was also as tight. So that was just me re-securing that piece, and that's okay. So now that the closure is on and secure, I can worry about the rest of my hair. So I am starting to sew in the tracks onto the braids at the base of my hair at the very back. So I have measured out a piece that will fit right along the side of the braid that I'll be sewing it on, and I am beginning to sew. And as you can see me fumbling here, I'm just trying to make sure that I get that needle right under that braid and through the track in that first one to secure it really tight to my head. So I am going to go under that first one a couple of times to make sure that it's secure before I start to kind of start sewing along the rest of the braid. So you see me going under that piece, one or two. I probably do it 3 times just to make sure it's secure before I start moving along the rest of the braid. So once it's on there and secure, I'm just testing to make sure it's on there. I can speed up and I'll start sewing along the braid. So as you can see here, I am at the very back of that head there, sewing along the side of it at the base of the braid, and that's going to create that good length that I want. And that's why I put that bottom braid right down there. And then I'm going to go and move to the rest of my hair. So I'm just going along and taking this same approach throughout all the braids. So I'm on the braid above it now, going under that braid and attaching it and going all the way across. And I'm going to keep doing this as I move through the rest of the hair. So here we are, finalizing this last braid. So what you see me doing here, I'm measuring the hair just to make sure that it's gonna make sure that it covers the length of it, because it's the worst thing to mismeasure a track and have it be too short or too long. I mean, you can cut too long, but you cannot fix too short. So I'm just making sure that when you measure it, you're taking your time so that it covers the length of the hair, because you do not want to go back in to have to make another track. It just takes so much time, patience, and energy. So just make sure that when you're measuring, you kind of make sure that it really does fit and it's true to the length of your hair, your head. So that's what I'm doing here. And so for the sake of time, I didn't show you every last track that I put on there, but I want to show you kind of the proof of concept, how to do this and how to move along your hair and how to measure out your tracks. So I did want to show y'all quite a few as I moved along each of these braids. And as you can see, I'm going under each cornrow and taking my time and being patient and measuring as I go across so that it lays really flat. You know, I want to make sure that I'm taking my time and going under each one and not doing it really fast, because if you do it really fast and you skip a row or something, it'll create some bulking in those tracks. So you do want to make sure you go under every braid. And here I'm getting up to the last one. I'm going very close to that closure, but I'm keeping about 1/4 of an inch of space in between the braid. Like, I'm not braiding on the closure. I'm braiding probably, you know, about 1/4 of an inch up. So there we go, guys. We are done and everything is on. And so what you're seeing me do here is, you remember where I had that big lace front? I'm cutting along all the pieces of that lace to get it off. You know, I really wanted to make sure that you don't see that. You don't really want everybody to know you're wearing this lace closure. So you want to make sure that you just really cut around the perimeter. And I'm taking those baby hairs that I left out to move some of that hair down on my forehead so that it takes away the wiggy look of the sew-in. And so when you start to pull those baby hairs out, it starts to give the hair more life and rich. As y'all can see, I have laid my baby hairs down, and I allowed myself to cut around the perimeter without cutting my baby hairs of the lace front, so that you see that piece is gone now. And so I have my closure. I might mess around with it a little bit more, you know, put the part a little bit, make it look more natural as I go along. But for overall, you know, I think the look came out like, going somewhere, doing something. I can put on my little booty shorts and my tank top in Miami and walk down the street, not have to worry about the humidity or anything like that. So I'm super excited and I can't wait. I'm gonna see y'all in the next video. Deuces.